Ever wondered what happens when neighborhood bullies try to mess with a family who's got two ex-military dogs? Well, you're about to find out, and I promise you this story will have you absolutely cheering by the end. Because sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door, it comes with four legs, sharp teeth, and years of professional training. Drop a comment below and tell me which country you are rewatching from ID. Love to see how far this incredible story travels. Right, so picture this. You've just moved into what seems like a lovely neighborhood. Nice houses, quiet streets, the works. But then you discover their SA Residents Association that thinks they run the place like their own personal kingdom. Sound familiar? Well, that's exactly what happened to my mate Dave and his wife Lisa. Now, Dave isn't your average bloke. He's ex-forces, served multiple tours overseas, and when he retired, he brought home two very special companions. Meet Rex and Shadowa, German Shepherd and Belgian Malinois, who weren't just pets, they were his battle buddies. These dogs had saved lives in combat zones, tracked down dangerous suspects, and were trained to a level that would make your average police dog look like an amateur. The trouble started with a bloody, ridiculous letter stuck to their front door. It was from the Residents Association chairwoman Let. Call her Susan, demanding they remove the dogs because apparently they were lowering property values. Can you believe that? Two of the most disciplined, well-trained animals you'd ever meet, and this woman thinks there's some sort of menace. Dave laughed it off initially. I mean, who takes these jumped-up little dictators seriously, right? But Lisa, she knew better. She'd heard the horror stories about what these neighborhood tyrants could do. Endless fines, harassment, even legal action that could bankrupt families. Rex and Shadow weren't ordinary dogs. They'd been through military training that most humans couldn't handle. They could sit motionless for hours, respond to hand signals from 50 meters away, and most importantly, they only acted when commanded. But Susan didn't see any of that. All she saw was an opportunity to flex her imaginary authority. The second letter was even more sinister. No signature, no official letterhead, just a threatening note slipped under their door. Comply, or things will get worse. That's when Dave noticed something that made his blood run cold, a drone hovering over their back garden. Dipping low enough to make Shadow growl and Rex pace the fence line. One evening, Dave tracked the drone with binoculars and watched it land directly on Susan's balcony. When he confronted her at the next residents' meeting, she didn't even try to deny it. She just smiled that smug little smile and said, "Community safety requires proper oversight. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about." Oversight? This was straight-up harassment, and it was about to get much worse. Suddenly there were footprints appearing near their shed. Rex started barking at shadows that weren't actually there. Then came what Susan called her compliance officers for blokes who marched up their drive with clipboards, citing some made-up housing regulation and demanding their fence be torn down. Here's the brilliant bit when Dave checked with the local council. The regulation they quoted didn't even exist. These weren't official inspectors. They were just Susan's mates playing dress-up and hoping nobody would call their bluff. But Dave knew his rights. He'd fought for them overseas, and he wasn't about to let some neighborhood Napoleon trample all over them. Still, these men weren't backing down. One of them leaned in close and whispered, "Some rules aren't written down, mate." That's when Dave realized this wasn't about dogs or fences or property values. This was personal. Susan had picked their family as her next victim, and she was building pressure, pushing them toward a breaking point where they'd either submit or crack. She picked the wrong bloody family. It was a gorgeous Saturday morning when everything kicked off. Lisa was out front, tending to her roses. Kids were playing in the street, everything peaceful as you like. Then Susan's little army rolled up again, 4 men. No pretense of friendliness this time. With Susan standing behind them, holding up her phone like she was filming some reality TV show. "Remove the dogs, remove the fence, or we'll remove you," one of them barked at Lisa. Now, Lisa's no pushover. She stood her ground and calmly explained that this was private property and they had no legal right to be there. Didn't care about legal rights. One of them stepped forward, puffing out his chest like some sort of alpha gorilla, declaring that their association authority was all they needed. That's complete bollocks, by the way. No residents association has the power to override actual law, And trespassing is a criminal offense regardless of what clipboard you're carrying. Dave was halfway down the drive when the first idiot made the mistake of grabbing Lisa's arm. That's when Rex decided playtime was over. The German Shepherd moved like lightning, executing what's called a drive bite straight to the man's chest. 1 second, this bully was reaching for Lisa. The next, he was flat on his back with 90 pounds of trained military dog standing over him, growling low enough to rattle windows. Another genius decided to swing a metal rod at Shadow. Wrong move, mate. The Belgian Malinois dodged sideways like she was dancing, then clamped down on his forearm with what's called a controlled bite hold. He dropped the rod screaming, but here's the thing, Shadow didn't maul him. She immobilized him, holding him in place with perfect discipline, exactly as she'd been trained to do in combat situations. Call them off. Call them off, Susan screamed, but her voice was cracking with panic. The woman who'd been so confident behind her little gang suddenly sounded like a terrified child. Shadow, hold, Lisa commanded. The dog froze instantly, jaws locked but not tearing, pinning the man in place without causing permanent damage. That's military precision right there. The third Muppet tried to flank them, rushing toward Lisa from the side. Rex spun around, eyes locked on target, waiting for the command. Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. Rex, drive. The Shepherd charged, hitting the man square in the chest and sending him tumbling into the dirt. Perfect form. Maximum impact. Job done. He never got within 3 feet of Lisa. By now, neighbors were pouring out of their houses with phones recording everything. Shouts filled the street, "They're trespassing. Call the police." Susan's lost her bloody mind. When Lisa commanded release, both dogs instantly let go, stepped back, and sat calmly at her side like nothing had happened. That discipline, that immediate response to verbal commands, that's what separates trained military working dogs from your average pet. Susan's face was twisted with rage. This is assault. Your animals are completely out of control. Dave stepped forward, his own phone recording, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "No, Susan. Under the law, dogs aren't liable when they're defending their handlers from trespassers committing crimes.
Oh.
You've just filmed your own people attacking my wife." You could see Susan's confidence crumble in real time. The crowd was murmuring, clearly siding with Dave and Lisa. Her intimidation tactics had spectacularly backfired. But Dave knew this wasn't over. Susan wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. When the police arrived, Susan had already transformed herself into a full-blown victim. "They set attack dogs on us," she wailed, waving her phone about like evidence. "These animals are weapons. They should be destroyed." Her compliance officers were still whimpering in the background, nursing bruised ribs and puncture wounds where the dogs had taken them down. Interestingly, none of them wanted to make eye contact with the officers. Lisa calmly put both dogs on leads. They sat obediently beside her, alert but calm, not wild, not aggressive, just professional soldiers in fur coats. That discipline spoke volumes. Dave handed over his phone to one of the constables. "You'll want to see this. I recorded everything from the moment they trespassed on our property. The footage played the illegal entry, the threats, the physical assault on Lisa, and then the dogs responding exactly as they'd been trained." The officer's expression grew grimmer with each frame. "Ma'am," he said to Susan, "you and your associates are being arrested for criminal trespass and assault. Those dogs didn't attack unprovoked. They defended their handler from an imminent threat." Susan's voice cracked. "That's not possible. The Residents Association has authority." "Residents Association rules," the constable interrupted. "Don't override actual law. You had no legal right to enter their property or lay hands on anyone. Frankly, you're fortunate these dogs are so well trained. Less disciplined animals could have caused permanent injury." Rex sat at attention, chest out, ears forward. Shadow glanced at Lisa, waiting for her next command, perfectly still. They weren't just pets. They were warriors who'd found their purpose in protecting their family. Susan made one final desperate attempt. "Fine, arrest me then. But those beasts still attacked people. That's what happens when dogs bite, they get put down." The officer shook his head. "Wrong again. The law specifically protects dogs defending their owners from criminal trespassers. These animals won't face any consequences." "You will." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Phones were still recording, and Susan's meltdown was already going viral. The officers cuffed her right there on the pavement, reading her rights while her face burned crimson with humiliation. As the police cars drove away with Susan and her gang, Lisa knelt down to hug Rex in shadow. Their tails wagged furiously. They were just happy to finally relax. "See that?" Dave said, grinning. "They didn't just protect youth, they exposed Susan for exactly what she is." Lisa looked up at him, fierce pride shining in her eyes. "They're not just dogs, they're family. And Susan just learned what happens when you mess with our family." The neighborhood changed that day. Susan's reign of intimidation was broken, her fake authority exposed for the sham it always was. For the first time in months, Dave and Lisa's home felt truly safe. And me. Well, I learned something important from this story. Sometimes bullies need to be reminded that their victims might not be as defenseless as they appear. Sometimes the quiet family with the well-behaved dogs has more strength than an entire gang of wannabe tyrants. Rex and Shadow didn't just defend their family that day. They defended the principle that no one has the right to terrorize others, regardless of what fancy title they give themselves, or how many clipboard-carrying cronies they can muster. This story proves that real authority comes from legitimacy, not intimidation. That discipline trumps aggression every single time, and that sometimes karma comes with 4 legs, military training, and an unshakable loyalty to the people they love. If this story had you cheering for the underdogs, or should I say, underdogs, then smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you thought. Have you ever dealt with power-mad neighbors or jumped-up officials who thought they were untouchable? I'd love to hear your stories. And if you want more tales of bullies getting their comeuppance, then hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because trust me, we've got plenty more stories where justice comes with a satisfying bite.